What is the most terrifying Wikipedia page to read? Stoneman syndrome is a condition which causes your body to repair tissues like muscles with bone, so all movement slowly renders you unable to move. There is no cure. Attempts at treating it have not gone well either. Surgical removal of the extra bone growths has been shown to cause the body to repair the affected area with even more bone. Freaking more bone for the bone god edit. Well, this blew up. I'd like to thank Mr. Skeletal, but ask him to not give too much calcium. Capgras delusion is a condition that makes you believe friends, family or pets have been replaced by identical imposters. Reptilians will do freaking anything to discredit people. Elmer McCurdy in 1976, a film crew moved a hanging wax mannequin prop in a California funhouse. Its arm fell off and it was realized to actually be a mummified bank robber who died in 1911. Rosemary Kennedy. Her lobotomy involved her speaking or singing and the doctors hacking away tissue until she couldn't anymore. That's about as terrifying as it gets. The nurse who assisted in her birth was also a freaking idiot. During her birth, the doctor was not immediately available and the nurse ordered Rose Kennedy to keep her legs closed, forcing the baby's head to stay in the birth canal for 2 hours. The action resulted in a harmful loss of oxygen. Charles Dummery was a POW who, despite being put on 10 times the usual rations, he ate the prison cat and at least 20 rats, and would often eat the prison candles. In one experiment, over the course of a day he ate 16 pounds, 7.3 kilograms, of raw cow's udder, raw beef and tallow candles and 4 bottles of porter, all of which he ate and drank without defecating, urinating, or vomiting. Robert Hansen was a serial killer who would kidnap women, then release them in the woods in Alaska and hunt them with a rifle and knife. Coffin birth is when a deceased pregnant woman gives birth due to the swelling associated with decomposition. The list of unusual deaths. It's incredibly long, and there are lots of weird / quirky / awful deaths. The one that stuck with me was a woman walking along a road to work and a man was mowing his lawn. A piece of metal got kicked up by the mower and hit her in the head. Boom. Instant death. It's not helpful to think about at night. Also the one where a woman was trying to reach behind her TV stand and she got stuck there and died. Her family looked for her for weeks, all the while she was dead in her own house. David Parker, aka the Toy Box Killer. He would play a tape for his victims when he abducted them. This transcript would be the first thing they would hear when they woke up from their ether-induced sleep. I feel so bad for Garrett. Tortured for 2 days, throat cut open, somehow survived only to have the police not believe her and her husband accuse her of cheating and then divorce her. Jeez. How? How the frick do you discard torture marks and a slit throat as lies to cover adultery? There's worse accounts than the wiki, but the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Hundreds of men floating in open ocean being eaten by sharks. Listen to each other being eaten by sharks in the night and many inadvertently committing suicide by swimming towards hallucinations from exposure. This bullshit in short, it's a rare form of insomnia that's incurable, and untreatable. Inducing coma still keeps the brain awake. And the progression of symptoms is just nightmare stuff. Edit. My most upvoted comment is the one about my worst fear and most horrible thing I've heard of. I'm sure there's some irony in this, I'm just not seeing it. Locked-in syndrome. Basically, you're completely paralyzed, save for your eyes sometimes, and cannot speak, but you're fully conscious and awake instead of being in a coma. Oh, and there's no treatment or cure. I once stumbled upon the talk page of a distinguished Wikipedia editor. There were hundreds of complaints that he was censoring legitimate edits about controversial subjects and conspiracy-like issues. The editor had a unique username, so I googled it only to find hundreds of complaints about him to another wiki admin. Wiki admin said we have no editor with that username. My head almost exploded and for a moment I was questioning everything. The founder of Kellogg's. Some weirdly religious dude that believed sex was the worst things in the world. He created cornflakes because he believed that something that boring and bland would stop people from masturbating. Was also known to cut little boys' dicks off if he caught them touching themselves. Not so great. Kellogg's, eat the cereal, but God help you if you pour the milk. Albert Fish comes to mind. The excerpt where he sent a letter to the parents of the child he just killed and ate still fricks with my head to this day. Why am I reading this thread? Ed Gein, a serial killer / grave robber who made furniture and clothing out of human remains. He inspired the characters of Norman Bates, Buffalo Bill, and Leatherface. The James Bulger Story. In 1993, Robert Thompson and John Venables beat 2-year-old James Bulger to death. Thompson and Venables were 10 at the time. Thompson is living a normal life now. Venables has been in and out of prison on CP charges. Unit 731 almost made me throw up first time I read about it. Right now you're thinking reading a Wikipedia article can't possibly be that bad. It can. It's so disturbing and terrible, it makes me want to cry whenever I think about it. Don't read it if you've had a good day, because it will ruin your day. Edit, typo. For those who want to know, the article includes cases of human vivisection, live dissection, without anesthetic, rape, forced pregnancy, disease injection, frostbite testing, and other unbelievably messed up human experimentation. So yeah, you'll be fine without reading it. I just found something that disturbed me. The Murder of Hellcrafts is about a woman who was murdered by her husband and, though her body was never found, her husband purchased a chainsaw and a wood chipper after her death. The chainsaw was discovered in the bottom in a nearby lake, covered in Hell's hair and blood. All that forensic investigators were able to recover from her body was 3 ounces, 85 grams, of human tissue, including a tooth with unique dental work, a toenail covered in pink nail polish, bone chips, 2,660 bleached blonde human hairs, fingernails and O-type blood, the same type as Hell's. The reason why this disturbed me was because it happened about 20 minutes from where I grew up. Also, I'm pretty sure I've gone swimming in that lake before too. Fun fact, this case was also the inspiration for the movie Fargo. Another fun fact about this case. Very noted pathologist Drive. Henry Lee was brought to the scene to try to identify the pieces as human/hers. When they dragged the lake they found the chainsaw and were gonna get rid of it as they didn't think it was related to the case. Drive. Lee insisted that they take it with. Why? Not because he thought it was related, but because Drive. Lee personally needed a chainsaw and thought he could repair/refurbish it. When he got it home and took it apart to clean it, he found the tooth that ultimately identified her body positively. Everyone thought Drive. Lee was a genius, who asked him repeatedly how he knew to take the chainsaw. He only admitted much later that the truth was he personally needed a chainsaw and was too cheap to buy one. I love that story. Even better to see him tell it smile. Jeannie. She was a feral child kept in a small room for most of her childhood in dark silence. As a result, she suffered catastrophic developmental complications like nothing seen before or since, some related to isolation and a lack of depth perception due to her small quarters. And the system failed her entirely after she was found and rescued from her crazy abusive father. Anything on slavery. I forget his name, but the father of gynecology performed 30 operations on a slave with no anesthesia to learn how to repair a tearing of the wall between the vagina and the anus after a traumatic childbirth, fistula. Can you imagine one surgery on your privates with no anesthesia? Now imagine 30. How about this? They relatively recently learned that babies can feel pain. Previously, they performed surgeries on infants without anesthesia. The murder of Michael Malloy is crazy. They did so much shit to him, including making him drink antifreeze and hitting him with a taxi going 45 miles per hour, and the man just would not die. Woha, my first 2K comment, thank. Hate to sound like a horrible a-hole, but this would make an insane black comedy. The dude just keeps showing up at the bar,